What's up, guys? Rick here with your DFS preview for this week's Sony Open. And before we jump into that, I do want to look back at the Century Tournament of Champions here for just a second. I want to shout out a couple of winners, wrap up some housekeeping stuff, but then also I actually do want to look back at the results. I think there is a lot to learn, something that I want to start to incorporate into this show on a more regular basis. So first of all, I love it, and I forgot in 4 weeks that on Sunday evening, I get a lot of tweets or emails or messages in Slack just about the successes. And, there's more than I can call out here, but I just usually like to pick out a couple of them because, listen, it's hard to win in DFS. It's hard to win a bet. If you do it and you get a little shout out on a show and it makes you happy for a minute or two, it's worth the shout out. So a couple of things here. So Mark McClellan turned his $3 into $250, which that's the stuff I love, right? The big ROI from small buy-ins. Similar for Sean H, who turned his $5 into $350. M Doodles, big shout out to him. He finished second in the $12 single entry, which again, I love to shout out these single entries, smaller buy-ins, things that are available for everyone, into 1,500. Finished second there. Good job, M Doodles. Clark Ainsley won $5K on the week, $5,000. Congratulations to Clark. And then I got an email from Larry, which I love. He said this is the first week using the RickRunGood.com tools. And he said, and I quote, paid for themselves 10 times over. Love to hear that. Finished third and 14th in the Pat Mayo Open, which was probably like, $1,000 or so, something like that. So great job to Larry. If you would like to be a part of this Rick Run Good community, use these tools. I will continue to give away a free month each week here on the Rick Run Good YouTube channel. So 2 ways to enter this draw. If you're here on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That's easy. Like the video and comment below with who's going to win the Sony Open. If you'd like an additional entry, go to the podcast version of this show. It's called 300 Yards to Unknown. Leave a 5-star rating and review. Say something nice about the show and leave me your Twitter handle so I can get in touch with you. Winners from last week were Bruce Fakin, and I got to be careful when I say that, and Bisco McGee. I've already reached out to both of you. I'll get you set up with your free month to rickrungood.com, and you can enter a draw as well. Okay, I think that's it for the housekeeping stuff. I want to look back at the live leaderboard from last week because there's interesting things and interesting takeaways that I think we can consider for not only this week, but for the rest of the year. All right, this is the live leaderboard on rickrungood.com. It is a free tool. It shows you in real time, updates every 15 minutes throughout the tournament. DraftKings salary, points, strokes gained by round. You can sort, you can filter, you can choose any type of rounds. This is a free tool. It shouldn't be. I should be charging for this. Everyone tells me I should be charging for this. I made it. At the time, it was the only tool like this. I believe it is still the only free tool like this. I love it. I'm a sucker for the community, so it's going to continue to be free. I don't know. I guess until I change my mind at some point, but I absolutely love this. And there's a couple of interesting takeaways here because the leaderboard on the PGA Tour and on DraftKings are different. So what I like to do is sort by fantasy points here. And if you look at the finishing position, you're going to notice a couple of things. For example, Michael Thompson. Michael Thompson finished 21st in a tie for 21st in the Century Tournament of Champions, but he was the 15th highest, or actually I guess tied for 14th highest scoring DraftKings player. And the reason for that is right here, 21 birdies, 2 eagles. Now he made more bogeys than everybody else, but the 2 eagles go a long way. To put this into perspective, the other 2 golfers who finished in a tie for 21st with Michael Thompson, Patrick Reed scored 1.5 less points than him, and Adam Scott scored 6.5 less points than Michael Thompson. So again, just trying to hammer home the difference between fantasy scoring and finishing position in the actual golf tournament. So you can sort by, any combination of this. I mean, for example, Ryan Palmer, he finished 4th. He didn't make the playoff. He scored more points than Joaquin Niemann did, thanks to 3 eagles. Think about that stuff. Joaquin Niemann made a bunch of birdies, didn't make a single eagle all week. Additionally, what I love about this is you can slice up any rounds that you want. So usually on Monday mornings, I'll come in, or Sunday evenings, And I will look at the guys who played well over the last 2 rounds, over the last 3 rounds, and see if there's any momentum that we can carry. And one of the big ones that stood out, and I actually tweeted this out, was Sebastian Munoz. So I'm just going to sort this by the final 3 rounds. And you can see Munoz was 2 over par at the Tournament of Champions through round number 1. That means he shot a 75. Well, instead of packing it in, instead of saying, I'm on vacation, I'm in Maui, let's go drink some Mai Tais, he goes out and finishes with rounds of 7 under, 6 under, and 5 under. His aggregate 3-round total was from rounds 2, 3, and 4 was second best in the field. Only Joaquin Niemann was better. Joaquin Niemann went to a playoffs. That's right. He went to a playoff. So like, I love looking at this. Munoz played himself out of it in 1 round, played great the rest of the week. That's someone that I would look forward into for this week. And we can continue to do that for the final 2 rounds. You can look at this and say, okay, well, Munoz is in there as well. Abraham Answer, who finished T17 on the week. He was the 6th best player, or I guess actually, my apologies, a tie for the 3rd best aggregate score over the final 2 rounds, including that 7 under 60, what would that be? 66 on a par 73 on Sunday. So this is how I like to look at it. And you can really go through and see, which guys played well from tee to green. Sungjae Im led the field in strokes gained tee to green last week. He lost 3.2 strokes putting. That's probably not going to happen again for young Sungjae. You can see guys that really struggled off the tee. Webb Simpson, we'll talk a lot about him this week at the Sony Open, losing 6.5 strokes off the tee. Will that happen again? I'd argue no. So we'll talk a lot about those guys, but this is such a fun, easy tool. It's free. You can't beat it. I use it constantly throughout the week, but I also like to use it Sunday evenings and Monday mornings to go back and look at some of this cool stuff and see if there's anything that we can glean for the following week. All right, let's jump into the key stats for this week. Waialae Country Club. Before I forget, Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, here on the Rick Run Good YouTube channel, we'll do the Sony Open live chat, which means questions, answers, updated ownership projections. We'll look at any weather, see if that pops up. Things change fairly quickly in Hawaii. Last year was kind of wet and soggy. 11 under par got you into a playoff. So things can certainly be un-Hawaii-like when we get there in terms of weather. So we'll keep an eye on that. Join me Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And then Wednesday evening, 8:15 Eastern Time. That's the Jock Market Power Hour. And it was a phenomenal first show last week. Stoked to get back at it again. You'll want to join us for that. Waialae. Fun fact. This is the place I saw my first ever live PGA Tour event. It was years ago, and I remember this is when I realized how good golfers were. Spencer Levine, think about that. Spencer Levine hit a shot out of a fairway bunker that I could only imagine. It sounded like a shotgun went off. I'd never seen a ball trajectory like that. And he was like the 200th ranked player in the world at the time. He stunk by all accounts on the PGA Tour, but still goes to show. Par 70, 7,044 yards. If you're trying to compare Waialae to the Plantation Course at Kapalua, it is all contrasts, okay? There's little to compare because you have Waialae, which is incredibly flat, narrow fairways. Now, you can argue that the rough is not very thick. I'd agree with that, but you obviously would prefer to be in the fairway. It's 7,000 yards. It's a par 70, so it's loaded up with the par 4s. Kapalua's got all the elevation change, all the undulation. This thing's flat as can be. It's one of the easier walks on the PGA Tour. Just go out there, knock it around, try to hit fairways and make as many birdies as you can. Still on Bermuda. This is a Seth Rayner design, and the most important stats in the correlation model are going to look a bit different. We see that driving distance, strokes gained off the tee, they continue to be important, but not as important as we've seen. In fact, there is not a single of the common stats that ranks inside the top 10 for courses on the PGA Tour, and you'll notice how close to the top driving accuracy is. It's the third most important, most common stat. It's 17th, which makes it in about the top third of all PGA Tour courses is where driving accuracy ranks in terms of importance. And we usually don't see it even that high, or at least that close to driving distance. So right off the bat, I can see that 3 different driving stats, distance off the tee and driving accuracy, are the 3 most important stats. And then you get into approach and things like that, putting and strokes gained around the green, obviously kind of bringing up the rear. So you look at this, what type of golfer should find success? Last week, we talked a lot about bombers. We talked a lot about Bryson and DJ and Rahm and all these guys that can hit it a long way. Kind of the complete opposite here. You're going to hear a lot of names like Webb Simpson, maybe Kevin Kisner, Abraham Ancer. We're going to talk about all of these guys. But if you want to look at the most accurate drivers of the golf ball in this field, Mike Weir's here. Mike Weir has hit 82% of his fairways. I don't know how many rounds that is. I'd have to look. It's not many. He's 6,100. I'm not playing Mike Weir. He's also by far the shortest player in the field, I would imagine. Matt Kuchar, Webb Simpson, Russell Henley, James Hahn. James Hahn is pretty interesting. That's a name we'll probably talk about a bit later in the show as well. Those are your accurate drivers of the golf ball. And then if you just want to look at strokes gained approach, you've got Nelson Ledesma leading the way. Again, I think that's like 2 rounds on him, maybe 4. Not too worried about that. You can throw him out the window. But Russell Henley, Jim Furyk, Doug Ghim, Emiliano Grillo, those are some of the better ball strikers on the PGA Tour. And if we turn our attention to the cheat sheet and start working in some pricing here, and everything you see from RickRunGood.com, now 3 views on the cheat sheet. And it takes me a little bit longer to update this every week. So I try to have everything up, within an hour of salaries becoming live. I think I hit that today. It'll get faster, right? I'm still learning the new processes. But anyway, here we go. We've got 6 golfers over $10,000, led by Webb Simpson at $11,100. He is completely deserved of this price. He is the favorite. He's going to be the guy that, when I do all my content and on Golf Digest and on, CBS Sports, and it's like pick to win, like it's probably just going to be Webb Simpson. And let me show you something about Webb here really quickly. And we're going to pull Webb up on the Holy Grail, which is, and actually let's do this by tournament, which is a way for you to just sort through a bunch of data, hopefully quickly, or at least in a way that you can see everything that you want. And here's what I see. Webb Simpson at the Century Tournament of Champions lost 6.5 strokes off the tee. That is, and I'm going to sort this for you so you can see it, the worst event in my database, which goes back to the start of 2015. So like 5.5, 6 years. And what I notice about this, so first of all, the likelihood that he loses another 6.5 strokes off the tee at Waialae, I don't even know if you could, right? I mean, it's not that type of course. He'd have to do something really crazy to do that. But look at the courses that he's had trouble with. Kapalua, his worst 3 off the tee tournaments in my database are Kapalua last week and then 2 years at WGC Mexico. What do these courses have in common? Well, WGC Mexico, that's at Chapultepec, which is at high elevation in Mexico City. You see just absolute bombs off the tee. Kapalua, lots of elevation, very long course. Guys also continue to hit the ball, 350, 400 yards kind of routinely. I'm thinking what's happening is Webb's lack of distance is getting a bit exposed at some of these courses. Now, yes, obviously he gets the advantage of elevation. He gets the advantage of a rollout just like someone else would, but I don't think he's getting full advantage of it. And I think it's widening the gap for him. I don't have another explanation on why his worst 3 driving events in my database are very unique, similar-ish type courses. So I would say, throw that out the window. He's not gonna hit it that poorly off the tee again this week. He gained 5.6 strokes on approach, which was 4th or 5th in the field last week. Still finished in a tie for 17th. So if you can finish in 17th and have your worst driving week probably ever, or at least in the last half a decade, you are certainly in play for this week. After he gets off the tee box, he's absolutely phenomenal. He's finished, let's see, he finished third here last year. He finished fourth here 2 years ago. That's my Webb Simpson rant. You're going to hear it a lot this week. I just love what he's doing. And I think he goes out and wins this golf tournament. The easy fade is probably Harris English. I drafted him in Pat Mayo's season-long league, so I got off to a nice start there. Didn't make my core in DraftKings last week. I can't imagine it's going to make it this week, right? He gets a significant price increase. We've seen the hangover from guys that are winning for the first time in a while. And then look at his results here. I mean, his last 4 trips to the Sony Open, 22nd, 64th, missed cut 56. Now, he actually did have 3 consecutive top 10s in the years before that, but now we're talking 2015, 14, 13. We're pretty far back there. I think this is a fairly easy fade of Harris English. And at this price, he really only burns you if he goes out and wins it again. Similar thing with Niemann. He gets the big bump to 10,400. The one thing that we've constantly talked about with Joaquin Niemann is the streakiness. We saw that. We saw him light it up on Saturday and Sunday to get himself into a playoff, come up a little bit short against Harris English. But, now trying to chase that result from a guy who's notoriously streaky, super scary. I'd rather go back to Colin Morikawa, who goes out. I mean, this is incredible stuff here. I can show you. I have a lot of different ways to show you this. Let me think about the best way to do it. Let's just pull up the live leaderboard here from last week. And, I'm just going to circle in on Morikawa. Or actually, here's what I'll do. I'm going to do round 1, strokes gained approach. Morikawa was 4, 5, 6, 7th in the field in round 1. In round 2, he was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th. In round 3, he was 3rd. In round 4, second to last, Kevin Na, the only guy worse. He was 41st out of a field of 42. That, again, uncharacteristic. I think that a lot of people, as they are assessing this player pool, I think you're going to see guys that chase Joaquin Niemann, that chase maybe Niemann more than English for whatever reason, just because the guy didn't win. I think there's going to be a lot of activity on Webb. Morikawa, if you were paying attention to the event, you would say that was a failure for him. That was an event that he was one of the favorites. I think he had the second shortest odds heading into Sunday. He shot even par. It was a really bad round for him. There's no way, and we've not seen this from Colin Morikawa in his career, where he has 2 straight events or rounds or whatever where he's not one of the best ball strikers in the world. And he was great for 3 rounds, didn't play well on Sunday. I'd be interested to see, and we will see on Wednesday in the live chat, what that ownership is on Morikawa. That to me is the most interesting thing. And then the bottom 2 guys in this 10K range, they couldn't be any more different, right? Hideki Matsuyama, who I was tweeting about, constantly over the course of last week, because he was one of the most popular one and done plays. I had plenty of exposure to him. Look at this. Loses 9.7 strokes putting, which is, and let me just sort this so that I can confirm this. It's either the worst or one of his worst putting performances ever. Yeah, the only one worse was the 2017 Tour Championship. So we are in really bad situation for Hideki. And then to put it even into more perspective, it was one of the worst putting rounds by any player over the last season and a half. So Sung Kang and Mark Leishman, the only 2 guys who had worse putting weeks since the start of 2020 than Hideki last week. So there's a couple of ways to look at that. You can look at it and say, Hideki is notoriously a bad putter, so this is just kind of worse than that. It's not that big of a deal. Or you say he's lost, and there's nothing in the next 3 days he's going to be able to figure out that's going to improve that. I'm just kind of in wait and see mode. I don't know what the answer is. I'll be damned if I'm going to go back to a Hideki Matsuyama $10,200 after what I just saw last week. Now, if we get on here Wednesday and we see that he's 4% owned, maybe I think differently about that because you need such a little leverage on him. But my God, it was brutal to watch. Hideki, zero confidence in that game at the moment. Berger's great. He's fine. Actually, I think Berger has a real chance of winning this thing. The guy's just such a consistent stud. Now, down to the 9K 6K range here. And what I'm actually going to do is, I think I'll pull up the Holy Grail well, actually, before I do that, let me point out, because I kind of love this range here. It starts with Sung Jae Im. It goes down to Adam Scott. Ryan Palmer's in here. He might be a bit expensive for me. But let's go to the live leaderboard from last week and just sort by strokes gained tee to green. And you might have missed it. You might have just kind of flown under the radar here. Sung Jae Im is the one who led the Century Tournament of Champions in strokes gained tee to green last week. 9.5, more than Neiman, more than Thomas, more than everybody. I mean, literally led the field. So you look at what went wrong for him, finishing in a tie for 5th, and it's the putter. So he lost 3 strokes putting. So how likely is it that Sung Jae loses another 3 strokes putting? So let's pull him up on the Holy Grail and see what type of putter he actually is. Because historically, I bet he's probably a slight positive putter here. So let's go by date. And we can see him losing 3.2 at the Century Tournament of Champions. It's something he's done before. He lost 4.5 at the Zozo. But what I see here is he bounces back quite often. After he loses 4.7 at Zozo, the next start, he gains 3.2 at the Houston Open. And you can see he just kind of snaps off. 4.4 gained at Sanderson Farms. Kind of a bounce back type player. I would be very interested in Sung Jae Im this week, and actually might make my betting card when that all comes together, because if you lead the field at the Tournament of Champions from tee to green and you lose 3 strokes putting, and normally you're a plus putter, even if it's just barely, that is a recipe for impending success. Cam Smith gets the defending champions bump to 96. Ryan Palmer gets the bump as a past champion. No, he won something like 2010, I think he won it. But also played well again last week. Abraham Answer's probably the guy that I'm most interested in. And what you're going to see is, of course, we're going more for these accurate. You don't have to be long, be accurate, hit your irons well, be able to catch a hot putter at times. Am I describing guys like Webb Simpson, Abraham Answer, maybe a Kevin Kisner type? These are the guys that I'm focused on this week, and we'll see what his ownership is. I think he might catch a lot of steam over the course of the week. He flies up the leaderboard on Sunday last week. He shoots I think it was a 7 under 60. What would that be? 66. Outside of Joaquin Neiman, he had the best round of the day. He had a great final round tied with Xander, JT, and Bryson. Abraham Answer flies up the leaderboard. If he can continue that to a place that should be a much, much better fit for him, it's really interesting to see what he can do at Waialae. And then, I mentioned Kevin Kisner. He's 8,800. That's fine. Let's go over to the Holy Grail here and start pumping in some numbers for some aggregates, because this is where we're to try to start to find a little bit of value here. So let's go with, since the restart. I love that, right? I love since the restart. 6/1/2020 is what I usually plug in for the restart here. And let's go by everybody who's in this field. So Sony Open field. And let's go strokes gained approach here and see what we got going on. There he is, Russ Henley. Russ Henley leads this field in the restart. In strokes gained approach, he averages 1.12 strokes gained per round. Wes Bryan, not nearly as many rounds as second. Jerry Kelly, Chris Baker, Doug Gim. Okay, those are small sample size guys. But this is interesting. Henley's won here before, right? I want to say 20. Let me figure this out. Yeah, he won it in 2013. So it was, and it makes sense that Waialae is a really good fit for him. Let's look tee to green as well while we're here. Sergio, 8,300 in this range that we're talking about with Russell Henley. Obviously I love Sergio's game from tee to green. The putting's so poor. It's difficult to watch, but I think we might get, at some point, we're going to get another Sanderson Farms where he gains 1 stroke putting over the course of the week and wins the thing, right? That's kind of where we're at with Sergio Garcia. The problem is there's nothing that's going to foreshadow it. I think we're just going to be guessing. We're going to be firing darts. I took him in I don't think it was a best ball format, but I love him in best ball formats because you never know when it's coming. You're never confident in playing him, but it's going to happen. So if you think this is the week you're trying to catch lightning in a bottle, Sergio certainly sets up well. I mean, listen to these tee to green players from the restart. Henley, Sergio Garcia, Colin Morikawa, Hideki Matsuyama. Pretty illustrious list of ball strikers, if you ask me. Let's flip over to the fantasy view here, because I think this is something just to really get into a good habit of. And right off the bat in this 8K range, Brendan Todd sticks out to me, right? Here's Brendan Todd's last 3 starts. 80 DraftKings points at the RSM, 106 at Mayakoba, 96.5 at the Tournament of Champions. Now, obviously, the Tournament of Champions is 4 guaranteed rounds, but he played well there. I think he was $7,100. He was very low owned. He made my core, and he paid off. And he doesn't get that big of a price increase, all things considered, when you look at this caliber of field. And he's putting up fantasy points, and kind of a similar thing with Lonto Griffin here, 8,100. 3 of his last 5 starts, he's gone over 92 DraftKings points. He scored 95 here last year. Don't forget this raw DraftKings scoring is here because there can be big differences, even if guys are finishing at the same spot on the leaderboard. Now that we're in the 7K range, I want to jump over to the tools, to the trends tool. But before I do that, you have to talk about Sebastian Munoz. And I tweeted this out on Sunday evening. He played the first round at Kapalua at 2 over and played his final 54 holes at 18 under par. Think about that. His aggregate scoring, and I showed this at the top of the video, right, is of the final 3 rounds, only Joaquin Niemann was better. So now you're getting him at $7,800. He had a top 10 here 2 years ago. I think he's going to be popular. I think it's warranted trying to catch him on that upswing a little bit, if you want to say that. All right, let's fire up the trends tool here, see if we can't find some value. So a couple different ways I can do this. Let's do fantasy points in 2020. That's a pretty good way to do this. You start to scroll through some of these names here, and of course the big names are going to be at the top: Morikawa, Webb Simpson, Hideki, Berger, Sungjae. Russell Henley makes an appearance. He's your first sub 9K guy. And then here's an interesting name. Here's a name that I'll probably be talking about a bit this week. So it's Cam Davis. He's 7,200, averaged 64 DraftKings points last year. I think he was actually even better than that in terms of median. That might not be true. Don't quote me on that. I tweeted it out a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember. But still, I think he was a top 15 player in terms of value, constantly exceeding value, because he's always priced at $7,200. And what I saw from him last year, and let me just orient you on the cheat sheet here to Cam Davis, is I saw a golfer with a lot of raw talent. And when he got near the lead, when he got into contention a couple times, I think he got rattled. And we saw that at Wyndham. I think he was the 36-hole leader. He ejected himself over the course of the weekend. But he contended again, or at least was on the first page of the leaderboard at Sanderson Farms. Tons of raw talent. I think he's going to take a different approach from the rest of these guys. He's not going to try to hit every fairway, turn this into I think he's just going to bomb and gouge this thing, right? I think that's the strategy Cam Davis is going to try to take. And I also think that, we've had now for some of these guys 4, 5, 6 weeks off. We don't really know what they've been up to, right? And weird things happen after guys are on a long layoff. So this first full field event of the year, someone this deep, Cam Davis, really interesting, 7,200. That's probably where I'm going to be allocating my resources at the bottom end of that range. Other golfers in this 7K range, I'd probably go back to Jason Kokrak. He started out like a banshee at the Tournament of Champions, fell back over the course of the week. I was running him through the Holy Grail earlier, and I'm pretty sure he's gained more strokes putting at, I might as well just pull it up here, at tournament at Sony than anybody in this field. Is that right? Let me confirm that. Yeah, here you go. So of any golfer who has at least 8 rounds, the best putters at the Sony Open have been Henrik Norlander, Peter Malnati, and Jason Kokrak, and then Matt Kuchar. So there you go. That's where Kokrak's name popped up, and obviously in decent form at the moment, winning CJ Cup and playing well at the end of 2020. Then you go down below 7K here, and obviously as it tends to do, things get a little bit wonky down here. Doug Gim is 6,900. He's someone that started to catch some momentum towards the end of 2020 and some of those off-field events kind of into the fall schedule. He's someone that I would trust just a little bit. Andrew Landry's down here, probably wouldn't play him all that much. I'm trying to see if there's anybody that does actually interest me here. Where's Brian Gay? Oh, here he is. Brian Gay's here. So Brian Gay, man, you want to talk about feast or famine, right? And it's been a lot of famine, and then the feast at Bermuda to catch victory. He's $6,700 this week. Before that Bermuda championship, I would have said, there's probably 3 or 4 events a year in which Brian Gay is viable, and it's probably RBC Heritage, it's probably Pebble Beach, and it's probably this event. And he finished 13th in 2017. He had another top 25 2 years ago. He's had a mixed bag kind of in between there, but played well enough to win Bermuda, can obviously catch fire. $6,700. I think he's better than a lot of these other names down here, or at least a viable option. And this would be one of like the 3 or 4 places that I would consider playing him on a regular basis without that win at Bermuda. Now, before we go, let's fire up a custom model. And, I laugh because someone tweeted this at me and I didn't even notice it. Last week's custom model that I ran on this show was like the top 6 golfers. It was, Joaquin Niemann was my top golfer. I think Harris English was 4th. I forget who else was up there. Bryson, JT. There was one other value, I think, but Ryan Palmer was in there. It's just like, I should have just played that lineup. Probably would have won everything, but I outsmarted myself. So let's see for this week. What are we going to do? So here's, last week we put a lot of emphasis on driving distance, not so much on accuracy. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a bit more on accuracy, which we rarely do. So I'm going to do 20 on accuracy, 10 on distance. Trying to say, okay, it's great to be long. It's better to be, I guess it's better to be long and accurate, but it's good to be accurate. Scoring wise, par 4s. This is a par 70, so you've got a bunch of par 4s on this course. I'm going to go with 25 on par 4s, and I'm going to go 20 on birdie or better because I want fantasy scores. I want guys that can, if this thing turns into a birdie fest, which it sometimes does, that's where I want to go. And I've got 25 weights remaining, and I would probably normally put them on tee to green, but I don't want to double count driving again. So I'm just going to drop them on, let's do this. Let's do 20 on approach so I don't get double counted, and let's do 5 on putting. And let's run this and see what happens. Oh boy. Matthew NeSmith is my number 1 player. Ooh, mama, that's what happens when you emphasize the off the tee, the approach, and forget about around the green, because you can see how bad he is there. Forget about putting. So I want to go back and look at that sample size on Matthew NeSmith, but maybe he's a good value play, right? I kicked Joaquin Niemann to the curb last week. Maybe I should be taking this a bit more seriously. Russell Henley and Joaquin Niemann do check in 2nd and 3rd here. Peter Malnati is interesting because what this model does is it's going to weigh recent form a bit more. And Malnati, remember, he had that stretch. I think it was Sanderson, and then maybe the week after that where he played well. I think he had back-to-back top 10s. Played pretty well. Doug Gim, there's that James Hahn guy who keeps popping up. Probably more research due on James Hahn this week. Almost kind of every way you filter the data seems to be in the top 8 or somewhere like that. And then Harris English kind of rounds out my first 6 or 7 guys here. So I'm going to take this model a lot more seriously this time around, do some more research on NeSmith, on James Hahn, but I love using this to identify some names that I might not have considered. So there you go. DFS preview for this week's Sony Open. Obviously, lots more content to come. You can find it all on the Rick Run Good YouTube channel or the podcast version, which is 300 yards to unknown. Much appreciated for the support. Talk to you guys soon, and best of luck this week.